Oh, you're good. Okay, cool. Even if what is warming is existential, untraditional means not too late, never increment matters. Time is each one heat so extreme, and the few animals survive food of sea tier hotter than the light sea motion is fully inoxidable low within ocean depth, once it's all by defense in the atmosphere, and ozone land based planet. But by UV deserts, they sit into North Europe, Russia. Again, the heat so intense, the vegetation evaporates, soils are blown away into dust. Humans emit so much, we trigger a greenhouse on the biosphere. See, no one knows where the threshold lies. Be much easier to achieve than above. Then thought above ship and a ship that strip the earth of its water, burning the lower investments. Also, people know to take us there. Cooling clouds, acceptable dissipation with CO2. When CO2 threshold is crossed, the temperature spike average 55 degrees and decided to feedback exposure. There are 30 degrees now, where we keep more burning. The more we keep burning fossil fuels, the closer we get to the tipping point of peril. The entire plant half degree makes a huge difference. 1.7 billion disposed of plants that lose. Recent decline 30% half degree makes a huge difference in extinction of an ecosystem. We're not in doom. There are pathways to geothermal, wind, solar, nuclear. We can reduce consumption by a fly license switch. To electric is not too late. Never will be just 1 by 5 better than 2. So 2 is better than 2 or 5, and so on. Tipping points are likely in catastrophic spread. 26 systems can be stable. 1 for each on the new change alters the system. Prevent overhead temperature need to be limited to 1 degree. We're already at 1.2. Adding outside surgery of tipping point for the warming gas. Some reinforce the compass not lack of knowledge of the system will change the wind models. So they're not capturing all the risks. Compass that's how the ocean as orthogen and like she's when the foundation of studies are. Threatened or approach to risk not appropriate given the uncertainty high and possibility should receive threshold change to the worst case. Adaptation is not sustainable. McLaughlin. 2040 idea climate will not lead to collapse as currency for example even at 30 degrees people will go craft and the marine policies is far with that sea. AC countries would adapt achieve with context and claims about climate first day sources that climate design position of their the countries claims there's lack of research on higher tips and this could lead us to be cautious of scientists believe claims of seriousness got more likely common increase the current complex disease or synchronous collapse of the system is not enough to extrapolate from current growth attack where humans could adapt where the food spending periods outside be possible existential change occur at lower temps important to skepticism stems from confidence future change will not be severe and it magnifies all other existential risk. Hemp 23 large warming not be needed to trigger catastrophe on the risk cascade. Silicon assessment by Ward have been at least convincing analysis. This is recent science and numerical figures based on Linus Blood. On studies and analogous Permian his assessment the most compelling aspect, the most thorough grounding the effects of uncertainty will last the most present. The reliable presence extinction cannot be ruled out for degree warming. A hurricane hits the NYC data deploys a global SAI flame situation so over some that inside is watched with its devoted ID fakes nuclear war breaks. How to ensure nuclear winter shocks have been impacted by acidification changes. The wildlife return new pandemics of evacuation by a safety facility to release. The modified smallpox will ever start resilient but fail. Humanity is extinguished. Emissions alone trigger acidification which collapses goldfish population. Gotta 23 ocean cities affected by of the Dead Sea and the release of course of habitats that are often the metabolic rates that will threaten the whole ocean food chain population of fish is dwindling. Acidification threatening the 40% of the global population may begin GHGs as the pollution billions are dependent on oceanic sources. Extinction crib 23 complicated return through shortages that leading to served when only fish essential threat is filed. How to nuclear company limited conflict kill 2 billion that's nuclear winters and cause the harvest or fail. Which are further wars some nuclear as atomic weapon falls into the hands of warlords. The AFF solves first energy demand. Trillions of daily decisions do not reflect the cost of carbon tax notifies consumers to reduce emissions. Sites are 23 carbon tax makes consumers mitigate the harming water as easy as a consumer can take the mass trade. They carpool home community of new pillows get a fuel efficient via engine drive and hybrid and EVs. Also a low thermostat by heat pumps and efficient appliances turn off less when they leave. Use efficient bulbs, a better insulation lead, less meat and more on the charts every day. They reduce carbon. Only a tax can dampen fossil fuel demand. Braille 21 of the government cannot identify inconceivable energy saving factors. Carbon tax impact may generally reduce emissions over time. The tax would encourage efficient vehicles to reduce short miles travel and drive. Many about choice by consumers on energy consumption while elasticity of electricity small in the short term is about quite high in the long run. It's liable to the risk with climate change. Second, low carbon innovation. It must be a cost-effective market certainty is key. Match good. 20 tax will work. Immediately, one complex starts here. This is defending core corporate price will give CEOs the pass to bring any corporate decision to the board. Makers will be planning companies want to transition with the market structure to be invested with confidence certainty. Company pricing non CNC on the companies will provide low carbon goods for consumers searching to market share 25 price will offer credible path and compares by itself for pricing and certainty private sector will be chasing opportunities that comply. Congress has constitutional power to like taxing most conservative judiciary hard price to a tax on carbon. B tech neutral. Only a tax overcomes balancing failure. White 20 carbon price will facilitate balancing resources means they will car less revenue tensions fall because missing money in the markets will fall and then as price signals become clear uncertainty should fall away. And when the sun doesn't shine and when does the black and carbon price the signal flexible resource to be carbon free you went on to attack. You need to be hydrogen gas or too much carbon price got division without you get segments of attack without full market. Third, international emissions trade sick is key. Bulk 21 nations will also consider common policies that responsible with CBA. The U.S. with the comprehensive order just now put the world to commitments in line with keeping warming below the 1.5 threshold and addressing emissions and trade will have significant implications in the world. Global prices vary. Difficult countries have very different priorities. Consideration global pricing not realistic, but border adjustment will push the world to a meaningful price. Border adjustment solves leakage and incentivizes global action. Clark 22 border adjustment prevents manufacturers moving overseas. They certainly pollute them. The EU has its own adjustment. The China and India are talking about it, but talking about in-house pricing responses. How we get other sections savings key fees within Northwestern. The other countries will be lining up to implement their own kind of Japan are talking. The US will be hard without a price on carbon to be WO comply. What about the China and the ACs? We can inspire the countries to pursue reductions. Thus the plan. The United States federal government should have a substantial increasing carbon price. Advantage 2 is China. Their current climate policy facade to trap American foreign policy and useless discussions. Economic pressure on the climate frees room for U.S. competition. Collins 21 Beijing climate diplomacy harshly limits of Europe propaganda to mean national national interests within the broader institutions. Goals of fighting control power aggrandizement. They say banks finance coal plant build out dredge the SES synthesized fleets on planetary flesh tax. Muslim amendment group from the already put political pastoral versions, sacrificing London in the process of Washington, art student, Beijing, and South American interlocutors, and native food negotiations with China to counterpart to the latest larger U.S. policies and to counter PRC aggression by distracting official PRC in bilateral dialogue regard the we are energy system industrial economy represents a bridge too far. PRC environmentals cannot reach power levers. The climate supported to pursue power regardless of cost, positively shipping cars that using the one Archimedes letter climate cooperation, opposing carbon taxation, and accelerating energy transition, such a force China cannot be making commitments to large way limit Beijing's ability to disrupt the U.S. and climate diplomacy designed to consolidate revisionist gains. That gives him an opening to end the LIO columns. 21 even mid-term high-profile scholars on the building groundwork for comment before U.S. foreign policy objective and treaties that representative like all branches of Beijing can comment conservatives and more centered opportunity China's world revolves around race place in the U.S. achieving hegemony, global influence, climate cooperation opens the door for China to pressure the U.S. and PRC statements against climate diplomacy rates absorbed into the state competition for territorial control when linked to climate requires U.S. concession on the key issues. Progressive messaging versus China, Washington, to limit continue to confront the sea for reliant A shape for Beijing, hand and climate partnership that trees climate as part of a broad continuum of national interest smoking for a position that favor PRC setting a high risk trap U.S. foreign policy and the China demanding concession now for the hope that may choose a mutually beneficial course Beijing will fail to fulfill, finding itself unable to fulfill by default of China. Demographics collide and the Washington face and nature price illusory common commitments to take decades to pay off and may cost Beijing nothing. Chinese desire for energy domination is global domination. Teaming up in the Western letter national order opinion. 23 the deepest ideology China's real intention is becoming global superpower, little dominance with the core times not trying to evolve becoming a sort of dominant. The core is desire for technological superiority dominance in renewable energy just as it works just reflect this desire to see down successfully dominating every segment of the China emphasizes the desire to become self-reliant to do a great rejuvenation. The goal is to restore China as a global power. The Beijing side of the Western dominating global order must be reversed. The China releasing energy because it wants to lead in all tech. China wants to be global leader advancing energy not just useful to fight climate change and trade opportunity to enhance geopolitical positioning. Push on it. A prime position to redesign the global balanced power. It's the primary goal. Out. 23 Chinese FOPO. Understands the difficult to fulfill a vision within the existing order. And that CCP seriously challenges the order attempting to rebuild. And international space on CCP global vision. CCP wants to establish a new Chinese order to see what fully denies US-led order. Argues that is unfair and unreasonable for address of reform global institutions to defend CCP's interests in Chinese social systems. CCP advocate multilateral levels undermine US global power China represents their fair market competition for away from fulfilling the major promise such as the PBI power tech threat. The theft tech and transfer CCP. They shift the order by redefining natural rules developed a skill. Such a negotiation when multiple bilateral dialogues by showing justice and compliance exchange for other benefits. Ethan, give me a couple cards. PRC, order cost extinction Wang, 1980 rising PRC having come out for the US Beijing will be flexing the order to replace American leadership but on the US order and security. PRC seeks an overhaul of the liberal order. China virus Chinese power under autocracy. The CCP contesting the world mandates the authority government for the world on the rising PRC power taking advantage of the calls to address climate inequality, epidemics, and terror and over the odds with the ally then tries the competition of this points of change of politics of the rise of unscrupulous ever more resourceful and determined PRC is now managed the US by towards choice between capitulation, war for security, moral leadership, and the age of humanity. This will be hero age America's global position, world peace. The world war to rest on how the PRC is managed. The AFF solves the BCA forces Chinese green transition while domestic tax ensures long-term sustainability. Ericsson, 21 bilateral competition folks China did discuss competition make U.S. business into the region and the world will lose trust of Washington for visibility for covers of refuge of Beijing one kind consistent resolution. No territory disputes access on competition will introduce Beijing European spiritual commentary Washington coalition of member states of the OECD establishing a global master pressure Beijing to cut emission the U.S. carbon taxation and change Chinese behavior national orchestra institute domestic carbon taxing that drives to negotiate standards institute the CBMA the data already exists commercially for Nigeria takes the product publicly variable. Audit held a few accusations that Chinese for being unfairly singled up the basis for no resolution of any suits of WTO force market trying to take a carbonization seriously shadow advisory oriented to company firms that have access to global expert market. They change the way they source energy economically viable. Key marketing companies appear they accept the ability of carbon taxation as well as tax with carbon dioxide emissions in the OECD countries that $60 per metric ton U.S. analysts already have effects we counter Chinese backslide far less able to weaponize climate change generation the defense of global commons the pursuits inevitable no retrenchment lane 20 whether the U.S. will see dominance is open question. There's a little reason. The blue China Washington is supposed to do to do this. The U.S. decision makers evaluate status pharmacy. They miss some Beijing status and claims because China is unheard. No vaccine because of restraint. They take a hostage position. The real to continue and they should seek to remain the most powerful state. Policymakers will invoke about balance of power. There will be the little bit of months to do if the world contested. Is this a no point with political intimacy? This is a time for great power competition. I think you're fine. I have 30 seconds. So. What? You want this card? I have a card I can pull up. I think. We're gonna see if I get to it in time. No. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna get to this in time. Yeah. Go ahead and just send that out. Yeah, I need to add a minute to that. Let me see. That's a
speedster.
What happened? I haven't been timing the read version, so that just adds like 30 seconds.
I wish I had that problem.
Okay.
Not me. Once Liz gets that, I'll.
Yeah, you're all good.
I'm sending it the most inefficient way possible.
That's it.
And how is that?
Minimizing every document for some reason. It was sent.
Okay. When do you get it?
Okay, I'm good.
Cool.
You're good?
Yep.
Okay, I want to start the Balkan Pomerleau evidence, it says that like if each country has a domestic carbon pricing policies with the border adjustment, it will push the world to a meaningful carbon pricing. Where do you have evidence that says that the plan causes that?
First of all,
it's a line from your evidence.
Well,
really
the evidence at the bottom of the line also says that if the U.S. were to implement a domestic carbon price and a border adjustment, that would force other countries to do the same. Second, we think the second card that we have read is also indicative of what would happen of
where
U.S.
does your
unilateral
evidence say
action.
that it would cause every single country?
Well, I don't think we need to win like every. Okay, so
in
two
order
answers.
to win,
Let me get two answers here.
Let me step in. Which countries do you need to win, like put in a carbon price in order to solve warming?
I don't think we need to win like XYZ country. Our evidence has specified China.
You don't need to win all. So like
our evidence, the second card has specified that China, India, and Russia are countries that would look at the border adjustment and implement the carbon price in their own economies.
Okay.
Which answers your argument about the first one being like not about domestic price.
Evidence says that Beijing is openly flexing in its neighborhood to replace American leadership and undermine the world order. How does the U.S. gaining renewable leadership stop what Beijing is already doing?
So there's the thesis level claim is that the Collins evidence makes is that China is using climate policy in negotiations as a facade to entrap American
but the
like
Wing
actors.
Evidence is from like 2019 and says that China
Well,
is already
sure.
doing those things.
Obviously, like there isn't like U.S. liberal order gone in the last 5 years. We think that is a linear thing where China continues to challenge it and gain power. We think that the facade that they put on with climate policy to force the U.S. to be distracted from like gains they're making in the SES, Taiwan trade, etc. Well, yeah, the Collins evidence is very specific that climate policy is used to just distract the U.S. from focusing on other issues of power grabbing,
etc. The
etc.
evidence is like 2 paragraphs. The first is like just like a bunch of things, a bunch of different things that could possibly happen. One of which being the almost universal brain damage and loss of IQ causing a chemical flood. The second paragraph is about how like many risks can cause nuclear war. Where is the internal link between these 2 paragraphs?
Well, it does say the words dwindling fish populations, which we think we have an internal link to.
It says the words dwindling fish populations.
Yeah, like
where does it
if you make this a big deal, we will say that dwindling fish populations cause insecurity, where countries are willing to go to war to try to gain more food
where does your
access.
evidence say that?
We think that's what dwindling fish populations, nuclear war,
and
lines in the
the loss
cards.
of IQ can also cause nuclear war.
Well, sure, but we have an internal link to dwindling fish and not dwindling IQ, so I don't know where you're getting.
Well, that's what your evidence says.
Okay, we don't have an internal link, so.
Internal link to like the LIO. Can you explain more of the like facade part? So is China putting on a facade now, like, or are they actually putting in the renewables?
China is acting like they're actually investing in renewables. They're not. The minor things they are is massively outweighed by them like expanding coal plants, etc. as a way to force U.S. policy.
According to the AFF, China is not actually.
Well,
so is it a question of like how other countries?
China is not actually green. The AFF forces them to compete, which means that they have to be green in order to compete.
So it's a question of perception.
No, not exactly.
It's been 7 warming China. So the only people are good.
I'm good. Oh, let me download it. Sorry. Oh, no. I'm assuming the doc is just a virus. Nothing else.
Oh yeah.
What the?
Elizabeth.
What'd you do? What happened? Okay, I'm gonna try downloading it again.
This is our secret strategy.
Okay, oh, there we go.
Now I've hacked your laptop. Okay, Michaela, you good?
Yep.
Cool. First of all, the executive cabinet executives to implement a substantial increase in carbon price in federal judiciary to support such an action. The ban of illegal challenging congressional decisions allows the EPA to justify its decision using section 115 of the CIA threat, restore Chevron and Sophia for 2017 with Congress undertaking to focus on the CIA rate the regulation of addressing carbon emissions on clear sanitation. 115 vehicle for emission reduction nation nationwide cap trade or a carbon tax advocates who are correctly identified flexibility to apply sectors simultaneously. Legal research, significant legal primary risk, and EPA has been avoiding denial, server non-risk, the most significant legal risk and failure to return to agency discretion and ensures fossil fuels within cars, will be effective payments of vehicles and guns, life-saving perfect vehicles on time. 24 cars return Chevron implication, but would also tell you refers lazy, fairly direct reaction, tighter regulator for what is a polluters getting permission to continue this as grow. Industries depend on the Fed bureaucracy, farm agencies, proceeds with business, more judgments, where disease, developers, new disease, fighting drugs, new tech. Will serve them the most, and investment is key to check extinction from ABR. That's why I tried 23 ABR poses an extra threat of modern emission, AMR impressions off 5 million a year. drive, resist vaccines, fight infection, and other ways need to be covered from antibiotics, implement and miss financial by 2052. If we don't do something, it's going to get very, very serious. Next off is the states counterplay. The 50 states in our world and areas where it should establish a substantial carbon tax using a formulary apportionment to adjust for interstate transactions and state levels, solve the environment while creating substantial revenue, but avoid imposing a tax on the board, that's worse. In all 16 policy makers for tax carbon, the federal government's important would be, and if I represent the federal tax would by affordability at the state level is used downstream with the existing EPA data collection large emitters, including power plants, refineries, and refineries facilities, and further report their emissions to the EPA to take use information to identify taxable emissions. Nearly all states are already taxed with transportation. Some states are national distributors taxed with the state. Carbon tax would apply similarly. Next off is the topicality. One agency must specify a rate, point of taxation, future rights, and a border adjustment for any carbon tax. Otherwise, circumvention and no ground that's superior. 21 information maker your questions have Congress design a draft implementation look if you don't know the fundamental questions how to decide a rate of tax. A lot of debate about whether the rate should increase over time, whether the rate should increase stop wide. Now, two blocks of tax options are along the supply chain. How to do a border adjustment. Next off is elections. Harris is equal polls now float. 913 Harris looks slightly to return according to the first major polls. Following the nominating to the end of the election, around today 47% of votes for 42% were from last latest poll shows Harris leading with a 45% ahead of Trump, 41% in voters overestimate the out-of-pocket expenditures of a carbon tax as low as 17. Public house out-of-pocket carbon tax, which agrees to Department of Proxy, the West Florida Carbon Tax Society's prospective payment is simpler than transfer to taxpayer government voters. Ignore the possibility of government spend resulting in renovating beneficial ways of returning. They will estimate welfare costs of tax expenses, not like alien carbon tax increase out-of-pocket expenditures. People frequently pay for gasoline and electric bills. Their comments on how much they spend on the effects on prices. Carbon tax would increase the price of carbon. No secret in Trump 2.0 ensures destabilizing nuclear policy that causes nuclear workers to go 24 by net zero nuclear policy transfers. All but nuclear weapons will terrorist trash global arms to trigger nuclear weapons programs for 125 dramatic take over dramatic build up nuclear weapons scope. Space deal increase all at once, increase in risk of nuclear confrontation, resave the defense, congressional efforts to alternative new modernize, increase SVO as auxiliary, Russian implementing more objective treaties, dramatically expanding their energy, space deal weapon accelerating nuclear arms, encourage initiation of programs around the globe, planet cultural decision, all revolution, sharp decline of security, America's increase in risk of global conflicts, unleash nuclear winter famine, destroy all civilization, even as this compel Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, LC has increased threat from the US fueling existing arms race, Japan, South Korea, Germany, push over nuclear, moving nuclear weapons, emerging non-proliferation, central goals, allegations out. U.S. leadership weakened in alliances support the 2025's mandate for leadership of destabilizing nuclear confrontation. And next off is subsidies. The United States federal government should substantially increase subsidies in the form of tax rebates, prizes, feed, and subsidies beyond the Inflation Act for wind and solar and subsidies. So the case while maintaining emissions 22. Major advances in technology radically work state the policy environment carbon taxes are not an important part of their target policy by identifying parts of market failure to shifting consumption. The good innovation is better innovation can spread across the globe, creating lasting change that does not virtual government regulation policies like subsidies. Do more to prioritize the technical requirement grid, which is only viable when people make the switch subsidies and move the economy over the hump. Next off is to critique the 26 rhetoric of climate as a threat multiplier and is a form of running the climate crisis government that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy going negative for the long 24 the climate crisis rhetoric government means the security livelihood deserts and continuity over others individual leads exercise power to secure livelihoods hard security measures as number for the positive climate change access to the enables a substantial to normal politics surrender. Climate crisis government reproduces a threat to multiplier climate securitization right with framing combined evidence and speculation and pursuit of goal tendencies towards segregation unit from survivalism supremacy political narrative justifies specific organizations lead to self-civilian policies resource securitization reveals a sincerity pattern of exploitation land and water lobbying in the name of climate mitigation. Next off is the economist said that the economy's Goldilocks inflation exploiting incompetence. It's up that's Declan 99. Evidence suggests negative sentiment is eroding climate inflation goals. The Fed progress low since rate assessment are improving, increased optimism, all signs point to progress nailing. Also, finding consumer spending will help us be better than expected, despite expectation for recession. The U.S. adopted down clearly not likely to a recession on the cost of nailing a software landing cooling inflation classic. Goldilocks scenarios in carbon taxes freak out investors and businesses lose 21 CO2 tax bankrupt companies even. A modest CO2 scare away investors to see a tax of the U.S. government's effort to hit possible boost companies and minds ethics by using military software will discourage investor companies head. Pursuits adverse legal action for further restrain capital CO2 tax likely to exacerbate our economic risk and business confidence is key to economic growth. As Cam 21 business investment is a powerful source of growth that helps sustain recovery. Companies ramping up as they grow more confident businesses has an important energy to power the recovery. Gross investment will be key after stimulus and reopening space. Executives are increasingly confident less uncertainty and improved risk. Businesses will understand the strategy and trying to follow and plan around that and define cause nuclear war. Mavic 21. A second impression would have profound implication for global security, couplings and global systems enabled risk in one area to mobile into football crisis elsewhere, banking, farming, health, and retail sector all entwined economic stress and industrial political elements with the U.S. Terribles will be fighting to deadly work from nuclear chemical place with certain accidents had this point more should depression issue repeats and sublead effects included Iran war use in the confrontation over Taiwan as the US to turn proliferate impact nuclear war or nuclear confrontation between NATO and Russia warming. Global mission South Smith 19 warming global tax not the U.S. admits modest shrinking slicing Mr. Hope. Countries China will file over the sugar guarantee will tolerate middle cost wealth and any tax that threatens the growth is an all-starter by reducing demand for U.S. taxes, lower the prices for others, thus slowing the transition to renewables and camp is irrelevant but requires 4 degrees of warming, which we will not have. Bailey 22 new study confirms the worst case climate scenarios unlikely of 1 to 2 only for the world not hottest for direct predictions. Recommend scenario in which emissions would be set from direction 430 parts per ppm. The likelihood of high emission scenarios that possible use is fairly file the next 50 years. The global economy says unlikely to trace emission possibly the useful war stock and pool consumption of peak yellow plausible scenarios emission less than 3 degrees and warming doesn't cause global conflict hook. 20 while rights may warrant standing or requires resources to turn into war if you will need the capability and security the resource base and unnecessary linked highly useful simply by service literature of the mixed evidence counter trend line pathways are normally weak empirical and war no one suggested climate will be the so-called of war will not happen because of weather and adaptation species expectation and migration means no biodiversity collapse from acidification agency CO2 is triggering chemical reactions turning ocean more acidic making life through organism researchers tend to survive acidic ocean that has a higher survival rating the particle CO2 levels are naturally high better adaptation of ocean acidification there's will be one solution to adaptation also hits the different species the ocean ecosystem and changing ecological winters will emerge and thrive and losers will migrate or die fish is not key to food stability all causes forest energy minerals and cyber tax wealth unbanked food prices don't cost solve the environments 15 near the food right constantly to confuse peaceful events gathered in term events of the many understanding of from non-critical data not only remain remarkably inconsistent they also use classification and also also causal mechanism between food and conflict lack of empirical foundation most when they do not these factors do not lead to conflict and actual data lead to spurious results war we doubt their strength in the study of one-time events such as riots and carbon taxes spike the price don't get modeled and pedestal climate change again 24 China and India are interested in putting more unnecessary costs on Americans cost of taxing significant higher prices undermines benefits and placing higher burden on those least able before increasing Korean dollars anyway countries see mixed results reductions in mineral growth have been hampered policies resulting in double decrease in competitiveness France disruption and economic changes in target taxes will fail worse than Winston 19 bird cut and new tax water taxes will be non-safe and benefit requiring a stable policy not clear that if the climate impact is temperatures will be negligible even if you're in a catastrophic scenario mark the card scenario next on to China one that's large 24 China dominating the urban faster early government support domestic manufacturing by paying tuition with other scale drinking by China which mining is started to work for metals and have generous subsidy. China's renewables manufacturing on its overdrive 80% of the supply chain, 97% of wind and solar production, 30 of WS Europe combined. China's production surplus means the manufacturing can be offered market overseas. The rest will compete even if the production costs 70% lower than other major markets. Not just wind costs reducing the best in cost services and metals and cells, and China will not receive the order of 2021 export. Chinese values serious technology and strengthening authority and states are all exaggerated. Non receive extension of Beijing is little interest in exporting its governance and its direct to developing countries. There are no evidence of China's defending countries, even if China's export attractiveness will not provide limited are not replicable model, not sustainable given Chinese aging population, corruption, inequality, social safety net, and the free flow of info. Drives global innovation. China's authoritarian system has been around since the 80s. Not a single nation adopted authoritarian states on China and decoupling fails no internal international. So security impacts of Square 22. The current U.S. European couple can harm efforts to mitigate climate change occurs worse than disease having China is heavy dependent on affordable technology. Using qualitative and qualitative data already to the security threats meted by RDM batteries has been studied as secure and these are not the state batteries needed to climate change higher. Risk of the supply chain because high manufacturing China decoupling is worse than the integration and enormous benefits over. Supply chains and REs will give leverage. That's the E23 contribution to clean tech manufacturing and large region depends on fossil fuels and REs and from fossil fuels depend on natural endowment. RE can be generated anywhere and large increasing the risk of exploring as fossil fuels can disrupt RE technology. Bruce consistently US China conflict will not stop total producing energy regardless of where. And no China rise. In fact, Barbara 19 China's declining US centered economic and educational technological works.
Hey, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Status?
Conditional.
Net benefits to everything?
Subsidies is econ and elections. States is just elections.
Okay.
Right?
And then Chevron's internal?
Yes.
Okay. The Chevron counterplan, what card do you think you'd read as legal challenges are coming now or would come as a result of the counterplan's action?
We think Richardson and Hyman.
Richardson's from 2017, doesn't assume the overturning of Chevron or anything, says anything about legal challenges, confused where you think you can solve the internal
denial of the Chevron difference is most significant legal risk. It also
okay, most significant legal risk. Where does that say lawyers, law firms are going?
That says for big polluters like oil and power plants, granting permission to continue as the status quo, which sort of depends on.
Okay.
And then it says agency expertise replacement by court judges or developers.
Okay,
and that's
so
between fossil fuel
I don't think that says that a company will or a group will bring a lawsuit to challenge the act, but that's fine. The subsidies counterplan, does it reduce fossil fuel subsidies or does it just increase renewable subsidies?
It
Just increases renewable subsidies. How does the counterplan resolve the demand for fossil fuels?
The HO evidence I think is good because the market goes where the market thinks it can make a profit. We think the process of shifting consumption is sufficient to solve.
Sure. You've identified how you solved the supply side of this. I'm confused how you think this solves the demand internal link, i.e. the fact that people are still demanding fossil fuels.
Well, demand is solved for if investment into renewables is
Okay.
successful, and there's things like transmission, which our evidence isolates is the reason why demand isn't there in the status quo because of lack of confidence in transmission.
Okay, that's fine. The state's counterplan formula or apportionment, what is that? How does that calculate it?
TC formula apportionment.
It's just how they like calculate the tax.
Sure. Okay. Who like collaborates? Who makes that determination for
Like
cross-border
state
emissions?
governors.
The state governors do.
Yeah.
Who do they? Is it just like the governors in control or what?
Like, what do you mean the government's in
Okay.
control?
I guess
The
better
government's in
question
control.
is 50 states. Is it a uniform tax that's the rate is the same for all 50 states, or is it determined by the state government?
It's determined by the governors. That's
Determined by the
what-
state government. So is there any standards for what this tax has to look like, or can like a Republican governor in Montana be like 1 cent carbon tax?
We think it's the standard the AF uses.
Standard is the AF uses. Okay. Great.
It didn't specify either, so like.
Sure. Okay. The elections disad. The sociology evidence is like Project 2025 is bad things Trump is doing. I'm gonna make a very weird claim here, but Trump has said he's not supporting Project 2025. Where do you think you've read evidence that says that that is a thing he will do post-election?
It explicitly says that.
It just says Project 2025 is the conservative blueprint. I think we all probably watched the debate where he said, I don't support this. Confused where you think you've read an internal link between Trump election and Project 2025 being.
Well, I don't think Project 25.
It also isn't only in the context of Project 2025.
I mean,
Like,
it
that
literally
evidence-
says Trump's
no,
nuclear
no,
policy,
that
quote,
evidence
is
says
in
that-
Project 2025.
No, that
so.
evidence is also in the context of his plans to like decimate nuclear non-proliferation standards, which he said
Right.
outside of Project 2025. Obviously.
10 minutes starting now. Stop prep 153 used, so 807 left on the send it up. The order is the advantages in order, so warming and then China. The procedural / topicality, I called it a procedural. The warming security K. The executive deference counterplan. The the subsidies counterplan, the states counterplan, the BizCon disad, and then the elections disad. Does anyone need any of that again?
Is it the same order in the top?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then I'm okay.
Okay. So everyone has it and it's good?
Yep.
Michaela, are you good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. 1 in C1, the affirmative solves globally. The Smith evidence does not assume a border carbon adjustment for cause to follow on and force China to follow or lose profits. That's a fucking problem. Evidence 1 in C2 Kevin is not about 4 degrees, so the threshold is known. The Bailey evidence does not assume a tipping points with cause to existential climate change. Warming causes extinction and extreme heat. A solar deterioration and desertification of tipping points, making Earth uninhabitable. The impact is linear. Each threshold of emissions reduction dramatically. Each increases the risk of extinction. That's a line. It turns war. Spiraling food and water scarcity combined with minimal decision-making time exponentially increases the risk of conflict. It turns ABR, zoonosis, adaptation. It turns maximal spread with minimal protections, making existential disease inevitable only with warming. That's the Kemp evidence. 1 in C3. The Cook evidence says hurricanes alone will not cause civil wars. It's not assumed conflict multipliers by food and water scarcity or migration crisis. 1 in C4. Fish cannot adapt fast enough to survive ocean acidity. It cannot fish at the bottom of the ocean or just eat plankton to survive. 1 in C5. Yes, food wars. Defense is about food prices, which is relevant about to a lack of fish for billions of people because of ocean acidity. All causes are irrelevant as pressed into our evidence is not reach the scale of ocean acidification, which ends food access for billions, destabilizing nations, making war inevitable, which locks in extinction. That's the crib evidence. 1 in C6 is about imperial shift to renewables, means that there does not drive up energy prices. They do not have a determinal impact to energy prices. Empirics are not indicative of future success. Carbon tax would be more successful in the U.S. because it's substantial, allowing it to solve its economy-wide. The U.S. has greater opportunity for incremental payment, has a highly innovative economy, and it encourages low-carbon innovation. It encourages low-carbon innovation, which solves the consumer side. It solves 1, energy demand, internalizing the cost of carbon, decreasing overall demand for fossil fuels, ensuring a greater decision-making. 2, low-carbon innovation establishes more uncertainty via carbon price, and then incentivizes green uptake in the hunt for lowest cost options. 3, internationally pushes other countries to reduce emissions via BCA, reduces leakage, incentivizes the follow-on of Inter 2. 1 in C1, China is not one. Their evidence has definitely been dominated the sector in the context of EVs, which does not assume the plan, which allows the U.S. to catch up broadly in environmentalism and export our technology abroad. 1 in C2, yes, PRC order causes extinction. This Swain evidence is 3 years old and ignores the things that they are exporting governance, e.g. the BRI and the Asian International Bank. The Chinese world order causes extinction. It undermines global security and inability to respond to global challenges like inequality, pandemics, terrorism, and UNT. That's the Wang evidence. 1 in C3, decoupling is good. Chinese action alone is bad. Any renewable action is offset by increases of coal. Only a compensation can force by solving them to internalize green policies. That's Colleton and Erickson evidence. 1 in C4, this argument is relevant. Is not our scenario. 1 in C5, yes, China rise. Their evidence is 6 years old. Their revisionist NEG evidence is selective readings of Chinese behavior that ignores their explicit goal of hitting the order per white papers. 1, environment, poor dredging, overfishing, silencing environmental groups, exploiting the global commons for revisionist gain. That's Erickson and Collison. 2, foreign policy, trafficking, a BRI, Asian infrastructure investment, peg, weaponizing tools, and abortion to be sort of the results of attempting to open the LAO. That's our evidence. The procedural. We be specified substantial legislation rate penetration. Their plan must be toppling against good faith enforcement of all plan mates for 1, after and while the cards advocate tax specifics in depth comedy literature defending every angle is a fantasy. Those arguments shouldn't have 100% win rate since it's unfair. It teaches debaters nothing good happens. 2, functional limits. If the solves and links to states, capital, oil, and politics. 3, job for topical, so it's predictable. Vague prices still solve. 21 price minutes to be due until it's high because the lobbies have the emission reduction and relative studies show that even lower prices have a larger effects in other cases. Every year the price goes up, and even if you sort of low you into price $1,600 per hurry. Anything else is aggressive and sets the burden for app specification, we have a possibility to justify a model of expecting it everyone is it's real world. No tax proposal says a static single price. Every one of them is based on the calculation of the time of the cost of carbon. That's normal means for every tax app reasonably good enough to get a code affirmative. The security case framework. The ballot is a referendum on the hypothetical consequences of the plan. Least most of the plan's implementation must be an all costly stops or harms to the inclusion of the plan, including that solvency. It's key to fairness. Plan focus most predictable and non-arbitrary. Any other interpretation exposure to goal poster, which means someone to see permutation to both permutation to the alts. Climate securitization is good. It builds for resources and will to solve warming. Avoids police repression from climatic effects. The alternative is nothing but armchair politics. Leaving 21. Securitization has had negative effects, notably 9/11 and nonetheless climate securitization probably an access to this genuine leads in existential after the number of game participation and mobilization of resources and will have down analogies to world arguments over this are equivalent over words countries have an successful and renewable energy to secure peace of so security motivations make why I have sound so much more than some. So on our present trajectory, militaries we drawn Asian ground control and repetitive joint our police issue everything to help prevent climate. The deference counterplan permutation the gap and support the action of the counterplan and court that shields and re-establishing Chevron because any legal challenge the court would side with agency deference, not court interpretation. Texas in the document and it's not. It would take years for federal challenges to propagate if the court to finally become law. Continued appeals means that legal challenges would not. Instead, there would be a law chilling any innovation of pharma. ADR is scratchable, so it will be addressed. Rejects here sounding headlines. Smith 16 drug When citizen infections are a threat to many already using activity, unsure the electric single event will have property medicine to carry headlines and public illness headlines. Followed by new data stage summer case source drug resistant virus event in the West far back as 2005. Nobody knows, not a huge cause for concern. All microbial system have been susceptible to at least one microbiotic permutation to the counterplan. Counterplans must give detection and functionally thunderstorms no benefits or to main test. The plan incentivizes the case and give contextual functional alone. For best counterplans that can be off of contrived and semantic distinctions that discourage clash and disadvantage the permutation to both the subsidies counterplan. It can't solve one efficiency. Subsidies can't solve fossil consumption, incremental payment, and rewriting module. 24. Some subsidies is most appropriate taxing, raising the cost of energy, encouraging conservation, also substitution, subsidies, and lowers the cost of all energy use, encouraging conservation, consumers will die too much. We'll cut back on positive uses with the tax subsidies, based on efficiency, given how much fossil power remains on that's inefficient over taxes. A rise in proportion subsidies, save people to do the right thing without encouragement. This is a free ground problem. 2. Bureaucracy. Subsidies for low, lazy innovation, resource diversion, and private risk winners. Let's comment 21. Subsidies lead to misallocation of resources, discourage investment agencies. Government is trying to promote a green energy subsidies, replace private spending as an easy way to see where public funds we get rather than being stupid that we can take a small 1.5% capital Asian markets that have the consequences of cycling innovation beneficiaries to resources away from actual business to obtain counterbalance lobbying and writing. Also tend to move to attack the risky sector played with differences, and there's no way it would also link to the sad permutation to both permutation to the counterplan. The counterplan does not implement a BCA and is unable to solve internationally, which means it cannot solve either advantage. The state's counterplan permutation to both permutation to the counterplan. State tax fails one federal lands revenue and Surisi 22 produces currently open investment extraction being severe. If you cause the extraction of federal lands, they can reduce share of the emission of activities on internal gas and pollution not producing carbon out of air or on the GHGs with internal gas and fossil extraction. 2. Enforcement is over 20 to state. How less resources within a fatty piece, which was popular, but then also have had more to enforcement to issue research as more capacity to regulate them than the state carbon regulation around the risk companies will. Illegal car research passage for home taxes declare the federal remedy is necessary and they can't tax it to border shelter in 18 FCC requires the loss of constitutional apply to trade that state level taxation when prosecuted federal uniformity would get like the base target about this regarding common policy requires a broader measure to solve leakage. Conduct is a voting issue causes strats to an argument of irresponsibility to solve offense or reject the econ data set. Recession now Lockman 960 econ. Slowing the baking is facing to your public hacking. A repulsing has to change for bank crisis, trouble to pay collections, so in manufacturing, housing, and the US consumers already appears after acres are under major pressures, more $1 and loads of fall due to given a detailed turn. Taxes don't hurt growth and are cheaper than inevitable response. Pardon in Needle 22, gradual mitigation given firms and to transition costs respond easier than shocks the US. Policies when gradual change response, GHG taxes when only cost 1% of growth is in your retailing until 2027. The results are significant load rise to GDP, which drop the delay beyond even more rush than a significant cost to GDP and no link. The impact is minimal on overall growth rate. 23, the impact of the carbon tax on GDP is contained by GDP falls on average on annual of 0.1% of lower driven by impacts on the consumption and investment. And competence doesn't correlate with growth. Aggregate 18 competence is total is an indicator correlation before competence average. Minus 18 GDP growth 3.5% competence with negative growth is competence, so ignore business competence and no correlation between decline and more walls of money. I do not think even extraordinary economic condition have much impact on where the US is ever before recession yet hot 20-year wars unrelated to the economy for recession cause where the would have predicted 9 of the last 5 seasons now wars unless they believe they will win exchange negative the motivation of wars and security and economic games economic condition or the one factor among many and rarely the most significant. The elections has had Trump wins now silver model candidate Gorism in 9/11 times are one for so least expensive any term from Wisconsin believe Harris would have been 247 AD so people present half to win from swinging these factors if alarm damage and voters say Harris one already sees a mental less problematic in the economy polling shares the cost of living and top issue election will be on a base of abbreviation but if it's given a 64% chance of winning. Either the office guarantee the link A pass endorsement piece in 96 undecided in hand swing states that the election Trump should be winning those voters he can winning a contest with Harris and reminds of voters they'd like to his policy but he Harris was a for a ban on fracking issues against it now she's against it what's the GED now she won't talk about it what's so bad about the GED what about fracking she can't answer because she's hitting her position B Biden and she's tied to him to show lose and never leave Laughlin 99 Harris which equal to Jason from Vitamin about as related found breaks of popular with inflation and border Harris can run but will be hard to unfortunately do a person in the Midwest 50-70 years left Harris campaign does have however I don't think there was time to give us letters we see here as a Biden or there's no link A Harris distances from the plan she doesn't sign a call and say 9-5 Harris says a strategy is clear on tax raises Harris they should vote workers at progressive Biden to show she's not hostage to her boss's policies issue Ross Trump claims she's the Harris to a failed econ of legacy B policies relevant for swing voters Israel 99 voters and so on to set these elections moderate to down if battle cross battle says these will not match Trump and Harris battle tax policies somebody issue and somebody do through a clips across social media but we focus on power about everything policies other issues thump like immigration and abortion and no Trump foreign policy disasters laundry list chronic 9 attend space cameras about the Yemen stuff and below this banner allies has heard wars instead Ukraine Trump is effective with the focus of peace on China Iran because he's in pros or Tulsa in the perimeter of conflict isolation Trump encourage engage in the Mideast and Homosi with all allies and your foundation close relations with Japan economic wars with him the withdrawal from Iran in I over a pragmatic Trump pollster forces not native flank toward Putin to provide new countries nationally with strength to the on the Ukraine if Putin refuses Trump to provide weapons for a force a ceasefire focus on climate wins back younger voters 18 and 722 Harris could win back to climate kids younger voters the sour part of a pollster over Trump had when Harris wanted towards the GED of fracking ban Mizzou to oil for those who get a big well from activist young voters and bring climate at their top concern of the rhetorical differences offers space for troops to reset a relationship with the campaign to climate hawks welcome Harris with evergreen action to climate power McCarthy endorsing her sunrise about organizing against Trump. The 8 and 722 card is marked as vow to organize against Trump.
Are you good?
Yep.
Condo's the only reason to reject.
Yes.
Deficit on states, federal lands. Where have you read evidence that taxing unkept federal lands solves drilling?
What? I'm not sure I understand the question. The Reves evidence says that producers could just up and move to federal lands to continue fossil fuel extractions, and that states would be unable to solve.
Why are federal lands key? Why does extraction happen? And like what
So
percent of emissions happen?
it doesn't say like an exact percent. It says
Okay.
extraction on federal lands accounts for, quote, a huge share of emissions. It's also predicted and says that in the future they could shift more production there if they're unable to just extract on state lands.
Okay. The strike down deficit, I guess, what's the impact to it?
The counterplan would be unable to solve anything. It would be endless litigation challenges,
This
which would make
talks
the
about
counterplan
trying to
unenforceable.
apply it to foreign trade, but it doesn't talk about a domestic carbon tax, I guess.
It's if you try to say the counterplan applies at the border, which is what you said. So it's like no BCA can't solve international.
Okay. The Trump disad. Why are past endorsements like necessary to like? Why do those come?
Why do her endorsing climate policies in the past come? Well, she's claimed to be an environmental candidate, and as the AG of California, she said that she supported
Wait,
banning
so your
fracking.
position is that
She since then has.
yes,
sorry.
because that's to get Midland voters. I guess I'm confused with why her empirically supporting policies thumb the land.
It's an example of her endorsing green policies that are controversial.
Okay. So okay. I guess the Harris distances herself card, that's about capital gains tax. I guess why
Yeah.
does that matter when it's like in the context of climate tax?
So the evidence makes a broad claim about Harris being able to distance herself from policies that Biden promoted that are controversial. And so when Biden proposed a capital gains tax and it was controversial, she downscaled that tax and said she would not support it.
Okay, but that's in the context of the economy. How can she do that in the context of climate policy?
Well, I think that's the double bind is she's either going to get attached to the policies like the G&D and fracking bans, or she will distance herself from the plan. Those are the two
Okay,
options.
I guess that's fine. The subsidies counter plan, I guess why would this isn't about taxes, this is just talking about bans on oil and gas, so I guess why does that apply to subsidies?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Like the
Both of these pieces of evidence are hyper-specific on subsidizing clean energies like wind and solar and says that it would fail, which is what the counterplan does.
okay. That's fine.
I'm working on these two right now. Or this right now. I have this done because we did it all. I'm gonna do this right now because
Yeah.
I've been working on that.
Yep.
Though I think the 1 hour is gonna, or 1 hour is gonna do this.
Yes, I agree. I'm like 99% sure it will.
Yeah, I'm just gonna extend it.
Is there a preference between either of these? You want to look them?
Def. Oh, okay, so they're both. This is both minimum of both of them. So
Yep.
yeah.
I think we're more prepared than this. It's also working on this.
That's fine. Yeah.
You didn't read the Bosch and Kosh evidence on states, right?
Was that enforcement? No, I did not.
Okay.
I didn't know that there is stuff.
Nice.
So,
A lot of people do want to work.
We have 7:30.
okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm just gonna send this out. Is this round three?
I'm gonna look for a water fountain. Do you need water, dude?
I'm good.
Do not post it. Thank you.
How were your first two debates today?
They're fine.
They were fine.
Who'd you
We've
debate?
We've been in this building, so it's been like,
We grabbed them.
yeah.
Ah,
We debated Kansas HP round 2.
okay.
And then this hybrid Georgetown American team.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Who did you all debate?
Round one, Emory ST, and then Iowa PA round two.
What did I drop this time?
You are solid.
Oh. That's unfortunate.
I just saw a class of 2028, and now I feel old.
Yeah.
I'm not old, but now I feel old.
Yeah. I always forgot that the Northwestern football stadium's right there, because it's not even really a stadium.
Is it not?
No, have you never seen pictures of it? It's literally like a high school football stadium. It's really funny.
It's like temporary, they're building.
Oh.
Is it temporary? I just didn't know that. I thought it was the actual
Oh, it
one.
is a temporary stadium.
Oh, yeah. I learned that today. Oh, yeah. Let's say, it's like, it feels really wrong. Yeah, that's it. right
Oh.
there. That's it. Once you see
Okay, okay. This is not real.
Yeah.
The generated photo of what their next stadium should look like is not a college stadium.
Oh god.
That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's what it looks like. That's what's right there. It's just like functional, like high school, like smaller than high school football stadium.
Yeah.
I think that's what.
Okay. Look at these photos. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but this is what they have now, right? Temporary, you know,
Right,
yikes.
Oh.
This is not for a college. No college would have this much money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say this as KU's building a $300 million stadium.
Yeah,
But it will look
we're like the one
significantly
school that
worse
doesn't have
than-
room to talk on spending too much money on football.
Wow.
One of us.
This building is so pretty.
It really is.
Yeah.
Minus the construction. See, like, just
Oh.
The lake definitely just outweighs the construction though.
oh,
That's
for sure.
yeah. Is Northwestern any good at football this year?
I don't know.
I know they're in the Big Ten, but like, I don't pay attention. Was it not quite their record for that?
They won one, but
They won.
Please.
Miami, Ohio.
Is that team any good? I don't know. Yeah. Dear people.
I'm rooting for Eastern Illinois today.
Yeah, they're in our hotel. You saw them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, they were doing some trolling.
They were like,
Or-
what's KU doing here? We're like, we're here for a debate tournament. And they're like, oh, we're here to play Illinois in football. We're gonna win. And we're like, okay.
I definitely heard some things said last night that were intriguing.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry.
Very good.
Where are we going?
We're gonna start with, it's not bad. we're gonna start with the state's counterplan.
Okay.
Subsidies, the K, the executive counterplan, warming, then China.
States, subsidies, K, advantage 1, advantage 2.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Or where's, sorry, did you say deference in there too?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's states. Hold on, I wrote it all.
Yeah.
States, subsidies, the K, the executive counterplan, 1, 2.
Gotcha. Okay.
Anyone not good?
I need to download it still, sorry.
Kansas.
Yep.
Michaela.
Mhm.
Okay, Liz. Awesome.
The counterplan solves the case as the 50 states and territories each implement a substantial carbon tax while using formulary apportionment to adjust it for interstate transactions. It's more efficient than a federal tax because it applies locally to larger corporations, which ensures they comply. That's the Morris evidence. There are two frames for counterplan solvency. First is the AFF impact. Set the threshold for solvency. If we win the counterplan, sufficiently solves vote neg because any linear reductions are better than the status quo. Second, judge kick. If we lose the counterplan, kick it and vote on the net benefit outweighs our terminal defense. Now, the permutations. Purdue sucks. It links to the net benefit. It's unpopular. Kamala won't get blamed for state action. It also generates uncertainty because there are double the amount of markets. So voters won't like it. So voters won't like it. No solvency. Advocate means it's a non-starter. And putting them to the counterplan severs out of the app. That's a voting issue. For fairness, reject the team. The counterplan solves climate change. That's Nicasio. In 19, the reduction in emissions will translate to health benefits and savings, and state level carbon bills would save lives in $2.9 billion from sustainable state carbon tax model state laws, whatever amount of tax reduction. And DHCs would benefit the ecosystem and encourage public transportation. States may play a major role in the ROC. Carbon taxes are one of the most effective and efficient mechanism to curb emission abroad. State level tax saving and further encourage collaboration on clean energy, attract new business for alternative energy. The federal lands deficit. Their evidence is terrible. Companies aren't allowed to move to federal land if they breach state policy. Their evidence doesn't say companies have the money or will to move, which means the scale of the deficit should be small in your mind. The second deficit. Their evidence doesn't say states can't. It just says they don't have enough money, but they generate high volume, low volatility revenue that they can put towards the carbon tax. Morris et al. 116. If states fund carbon fees are less larger than other revenue sources. For example, California revenue fails just as activity fails and demands on safety net rights implementing volatile with carbon tax, which stabilize finances, avoid boom bust cycle. The rising rate more than counteract decline in tax bases decades for new states and needs worry.
Okay.
Needs worry. The third piece of evidence is just a strike down. Imposing formulary taxes allows for important expert adjustments based on annual data, but doesn't violate the dormant clause in their evidence. Doesn't assume uniform fiat that's common. In Chongqing 17, replace border with formulary apportionment. The capital tax would tax for once a year the same way. States administer their corporate tax income and apply an apportionment formula based on intensity of oil imported. Pay its carbon tax of oil imported was adjusted using apportionment to avoid. The border adjustment is not part of reform. COTCE was a state level VAT. The carbon tax would only be remitted by a handful of producers. Would not be the problem. Many businesses having the tax budget with prices rebate. The formula would be measuring carbon intensity the same as the base of a tax. Once the state progress could coordinate the sales tax represents a major tax base states exploit, and federal government does not. States adopting and coordinated would hardly be unprecedented. Would not be too difficult. Such action would have a significant impact on institutions from which it would be reduced as other states join. According to seamlessly averages states suppliers having the label input output labeled how we do nothing. That should render the system unconstitutional, but the argument is easier feeling away. Already depends the carbon tax coordinated with California learners particular major matters particularly clearly. The carbon tax does not help the interstate industries tax on a global externality, and DCC challenges fail under current canon. States have an established right to apportionment taxes on interstate commerce, so as long as taxes are applied equally in state, and that it solves. That's Conic in 22. The court also established a modern test for taxes under the TCC transit, and Brady of Parkerville would challenges the tax report would be in the complete audit test starting with substantial nexus like the state produces energy outside of the importance that would easily satisfy lower threshold requirement. Tracks closely with fair relation establishes a threshold requirement that taxes relates to services. A distributor could bring a challenge, but the court hasn't, and he has stated a tax is not the assessment of benefits. Would also likely pass an important avoidance if it poses a tax both in and out of state producers same way similar to corporate income taxes. Likely a strong case of importance is reasonable. There is no additional burden on out of state producers. Now conditionality, we get it. One is flexibility. The app is OP. They thump every day and get infinite prep. They discourage critical thinking because 2As don't want to defend the app. Second is experimentation. Their interpretation decks argument, innovation. NEG teams are risk averse and will research one still generic. Third is logic. A policymaker would never choose a poor policy, which means their interpretation is arbitrary. Now zero impact to their offense. 1, 2 error spin and permutations. Check of use of counterpoint. Second, skew is inevitable because of speed and highlighting straight turns. And add-ons check it. 3, concede reasonability on the procedural. They have to prove we made the debate impossible. Now Dispo can't solve our offense. They still get to choose the block for the NEG, which still rigs the game in the AFF favor. That lacks consensus, which proves it's still which proves it's still match fixing. Now the subsidies counterplay. Concede the permutation is just a test of competition with a K. Concede the permutation just a test of competition. 0 offense on the split. The executive counterplay no impact and concede the permutation. There's no offense here. Now the climate change advantage. It's not existential. First is warming. Studies show catastrophic warming is unlikely. Their studies assume a substantial increase in CO2, which won't happen. Fossil fuels already past their peak. That's the Bailey evidence. Second is war or global conflict is impossible. Small scale conflicts are inevitable, and their impacts are overstated. Their studies have to weak imperial support, and war isn't going to happen just because of weather, which is the Cook evidence, which was conceded, which means that they can't turn any of our war impacts, and positive trends to spread their impact. That's Koklani 21. Empirical trends in climate phenomena indicate none of the trends are consistent with the received near and food supplies increase more steadily to extreme weather events, decline death rates from climate decline decrease as the carbon dioxide increase. Every indicator of human well-being advance like expectancy and improved north there any signal of turnaround results. Reaffirm findings of several studies that found state of humanity has improved Earth is greener, increased land productivity, reduced habitat loss by 14%, saving numerous species and ecosystem. Now global emissions thump. Warming might be global, but carbon taxes are not. Countries have zero incentive to follow on. The U.S. is already a small fraction of global emissions. That's Smith. Emissions just move offshore rather than dissipate, even with a border adjustment. That's Tardo. And 23 on auto show leakage from abatement. Leakage remains positive because CBM not a coalition of countries to increase emissions. CBM insufficient offset. Leakage as abatement policy strengthen over time. Leakage increase. Other countries thump. One is China. That's Stevens. And 23, despite leading in RE, China gets 90% of energy from fossil fuels. Responsible for having new coal growth and incompatible limiting emissions. Second is India. That's Nutricelli. And 24, India is the third highest polluting country to meet the Paris world cannot afford India to follow the same path, bringing the fossil fuels to greater energy use when pollution coal comes in nearly tripled overall. Pollution is 75% higher than in 05. Acidification is not existential. Has been not unique for decades, which means no terminal impact. And food prices don't cause conflict. There's no data or empirics. There is not a relationship between food and conflict. And other factors thump. That's the Demarest evidence. It does apply. It's about the relationship between food and conflict, and says that the app can solve it. Their correct evidence is actually atrocious. Cross-X proves it doesn't actually have an internal link in things like IQ. If links like IQ can cause nuclear war, then death is inevitable. Any intervening actors solve the terminal impact, but carbon taxes fail. 1, they spike prices and can't be modeled. China and India don't want to put in extra cost. Taxes cause higher prices, which places a heavy burden on consumer, which wrecks competitiveness. Second is administrative error. It's a bureaucratic nightmare. VSCA is too complex, and change in temperature would be negligible, which means agencies can't influence business behavior and can't cut emissions, which is Williamson now the China advantage. China has already won the race. They're manufacturing faster than any other country and have a monopoly on minerals and battery supply chain. That's flowers. 1 is minerals. China's dominant. China and 23, China's killing the world. The importance of raw material input and demand and fueling American innovation. China will start squeezing the value chain in response to American restriction dominance of rare earth minerals, critical minerals, race near monopoly and processing dominates. The midstream processing for materials essential to most of America's technology. Mark the credit technology. Second is supply chain. China has the advantage of the Reuters. And 23, China will have more than 80% solar capacity with through 2026, satisfying the annual demand. Much of next to nations like the U.S. are subsidizing solar production. But China has invested more than $130 billion in solar, enough to meet global demand by 2032. Force panel prices down dramatically this year despite strong initiatives for local manufacturing. China will dominate global supply and continue to widen the technology and cost gap. Renewable energy doesn't give leverage. The analogy between fossil fuel dependent and renewables is fake. They can be disrupted. U.S. and China conflict over renewables isn't significant and doesn't give China leverage. That's the lead evidence now. China rise. China won't shift the world order. They have no interest in exporting systems of governance, and it's too difficult for other countries to adopt their policies, which is swaying evidence. China doesn't have the capability or will to change U.S. leadership. That's lead. And 18, Chinese leaders clearly stated China will never seek hegemony. Peaceful rise, the only realistic choice for China in terms of allies, global military bases, influence, you having influence on global finance sector, and so forth. It's very difficult for China to rival. Building on its own system order will be limited to regional influence and reflected on military aspects. Now, decoupling fails. It's logistically impossible to reach China in the tech race. The U.S. is already dependent on China for low carbon tech and transitioning. Away is impossible. That's Clark. The U.S. can't compete with China, but slowing down the green transition. That's Liam Zhao. 23 U.S. renewables is blooming. The country's not manufacturing Africa when we meet domestic demand. America's transformation will be slow and costly if decouples from pennies and moment China established itself as front runner in global supply chain. America cannot build everything in Japan or America. Utilizing the scale and knowledge and know-how of Chinese manufacturing will be key to ramping up the domestic supply. The U.S. is already playing catch up. I'm pretty sure that was the end of the card. Yeah.
Okay. Are you good for Cossacks?
Let me just take a sip of water. Okay, now I'm good.
The counterplan, does it tax foreign trade or just trade between states?
Between states, yeah.
Okay, so just domestic in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay, the warming advantage, the Gocklany card, it's about less people dying now than they did in the 1700s due to disease. Why does this disprove
No, it's
warming?
talking about a bunch of different things. It also is talking about
So it's-
death rates. Yes, you did point out one line that says it's about death rates from diseases have declined, and it also says like mortality to things like extreme weather events have declined, and life expectancy is improving for climate disasters.
But I want to confirm,
even as
this
climate
comparison
events
is from 1700 to today. Why does this apply to the next 50 years of climate change? Where is this, I guess, descriptive or predictive of the future?
Well, I think the fact that it is between that amount of time, it's not just a comparison, it's a like linear study from 1700s to now, and says that across the board, our ability to adapt to CO2 increases has increased as well.
Where do you think it makes that claim or
As
makes any
carbon
claims
dioxide
about the
increase,
status
every
quo?
indicator of human well-being advance. Life expectancy has improved.
Sure, and again, that data set is about since the 1700s.
Yeah, you keep saying that, and I'm telling
Yes.
you that it's a linear study.
The TAR evidence for global emissions says the mean estimate of the models is that the CBAM reduces carbon leakage in the non-coalition. I guess where do you think this
Wait.
card says?
Wait, sorry, where are you?
The unhighlighted part says mean estimate is that the CBAM reduces carbon leakage in the non-coalition. Where does this card say leakage occurs, the app is unable to solve?
It says CBAM can't induce non-coalition. It induces non-coalition countries to increase emissions. I'm like trying to find the line that you're talking about.
It's the top
The
of that
mean
paragraph.
estimate implies that for. Yeah, it says that the non-coalition countries increase their emissions for every time the CBAM is implemented. Yeah, it induces non-coalition countries to increase emissions. It's insufficient to offset leakage. Like, I don't know why you think this is close out.
Advantage, actually, the states counterplan,
Mm-hmm.
this Gamish and Shonsky evidence, I just want to confirm this card is solely about the DCC and not the Foreign Commerce Clause, correct?
Isn't it
I'm
the
reading this
dormant
correct?
foreign commerce?
Yeah,
clause?
that's what this evidence is about, right? The dormant clause, not the.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what you're talking about.
Perfect. And then advantage 2, why is it impossible to beat China in the tech race?
It's impossible to decouple from China
Why?
because they're already the front runner. So like the U.S.
Why
is
does that mean
able
we
to
can't
adapt.
decouple or use domestic
Because
minerals?
like it's about global dependence on China, not just the U.S. It's impossible to get other countries to like stop using China as a resource.
The one on Riceman said it's going to be econ and elections.
Is it just elections?
No, econ.
Econ elections, sorry.
So many young people are good. Okay, feels good, Kansas.
Yeah, I'm good.
Now I'm waiting on my partner.
Sorry, I'm trying to download. I promise.
Wow.
Okay, there it is. I'm good now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry.
Concede impact defense not going forward, but uniqueness, most recent data spurred optimism. More evidence outweighs our evidence only about federal interest rates of ours. It assumes a holistic picture of the economy is proceeding. No, the economy did not clearly like the recession in 24 chiefs of economists claim it appears to look up and down and softly the updated data fears deteriorating economy and there's a steady upward trajectory for growth as 9/11. All the economy strongest way inflation expanded like space of labor markets losing inflation slowing the economy has started to go since the pandemic rebounded quickly. The late term one voters don't perceive the difference. They think any reductions are permanent. They don't see the nuance of the policy. This relies on voters understanding the distinction between short versus long time frame arguments, which is hard to differ for the Democrats to package to any economic bad event happens after the election, so it's irrelevant. The concession no impact means there's no impact to the Toronto elections. Trump's nuclear policy was a nuclear winter war, nuclear confrontation, nuclear question, China and Iran and North Korea perceive the use of massive threat and create nuclear conflicts to global proliferation. Japan, South Korea, and Germany push over the nuclear line because they feel that average strikes and doubt U.S. leadership. That's because our impact outweighs the scope of frame tribes. Policies worldwide effects, and you know the world will erupt in global free switching climate change efforts. And first win 24 victory for Trump related to 4 billion tons of emissions across global. Damage from $9 trillion engaged by several states in clean energy technology over the past 5 years. What business climate pledge aggregation modeling highlights significant impacts of the Biden and global hopes of keeping warming global 1.5 degrees Celsius. Biden split the Paris agreement he has. It will been along with the policies to keep within reach for the measure. Could boost fossil fuels and undermine the progress of clean energy. The U.S. is all guaranteed to push hard into is China. Trump acts in a way provocative ways that undermine U.S. alliance shreds. The U.S. international order 124 is embraced by Trump decided to long-term damage to America's global position for Trump operating unilaterally with the U.S. as well as once less true. Now China's an FII peer states as Trump to the long-term diplomacy and unfortunate dismal tendencies are worse than China's second administrative agenda take a relief approach to the rest of what happened U.S. policy. Trump wants to blind and post years and everyone not to China restricting trade by calling for tariffs. Trump trying to telling American confidence and inability to keep the global stage. Other states retaliate lowering economic trade. Trump these challengers of ending transportation or undermining efforts to reserve American economic influence question of the U.S. Also support Taiwan making it easier for China to rise the size of control Europe. Trump only implements over Ukraine as shows how little he understands about the situation. China of America's possible policy dysfunction and diminished appeal has intended to prove Trump rewarded institutions and make future elections meaningful speaking government as much as possible. Trump transparency so says custodial carbon extremely low cost funding for admin agencies like the EPA and takes global credibility in U.S. climate policy uniqueness. Harris is leading the polls now. Trump Harris is at Trump 41 to 41%. That's a focus. A question of what things. One debate Harris is winning this one. 9-12 Harris why didn't leader for Trump lead by Clinton's debate is record 3-point lead Trump lost after debate increased 45% debate held for 16 momentum 1 after the debate is Trump shouting conspiracy theory that critical moment for the rest of needed to introduce her policy ideas to polls her party 9 12 outside predicted Trump will lose the election and contest debate performance was fact check 4 times results secret Trump lost conversations about people eating casseroles calling the hungry running just world creating negative performance as local contention to cost him the debate he lost was because the debate performance of Senate candidate and war determined to blow an election to 3 is betting Morgan says Church and 9-12 Harris took the 20 members holding debate that is getting Harris at over percentage point answer were the only ones that are 2/3 of the debate watchers that Harris won first debates have a big impact on not spending odds favor Harris only lost twice since 1866 and 4 swing states Harris is narrowly but disclosed as good 13 swing states in the election cycle so George Trump and Harris in a narrow race Harris averages 12 against virtually tied Pennsylvania Harris only 11.1% of the swing states for Harris maintains a healthy lead here Harris and Trump and campaigning of the States Pennsylvania Michigan and Georgia hoping to tell the series on the south side past enormous don't thump one time frame happened before Trump's candidate which means she doesn't get credit or blowback to abandoning positions as her argument voters don't like that she stands for nothing if she tries to turn back now it hurts her campaign strategy but Trump tries to stick her with it which creates a framework with no one knows what she stands for they say they distance from the plan no begs the question of uniqueness which I did above or uniqueness evidence that says precedent ties her to Biden which is proves that it precedent her ties to Biden which proves our argument they say distances from the plan 1 Trump will let her distance from the plan spin enables Midland voters 2 capital gains tax is different it's walking the line between her base there's a reason she went back on the policy but the plan forces her to choose between her base and moderate voters which is our internal link evidence and voters hate the T word that's saga 20 other carbon president polls well housing transition that's the public busing the local over tax nothing Americans decided to set up for Washington's voters by times 2 separate carbon tax nation for the written responsibility middle class carbon tax when you have to have native black Latino Americans but the cost of climate change why is coming no Western carbon tax because Biden and this privacy will down the electoral for political saber why would you leave with the idea you're going to tax someone one all of the things you're going to give people away carbon tax benefits are salient so something carbon tax benefits people also alien tax is not an for the environmental benefits are differently as people change their behavior people be able to find ways not to future makes the tax like logical and people understand the ability when there's circumstances change the worst likely to predict their current use into free trade ignoring that behavior changes in response to carbon tax and specifically in swing states Pennsylvania Church where 24 Pennsylvania voters attitude towards hydrogen health concerns for different dumps voters prefer candidates lower hydrogen rates higher the rather than climate change by energy agenda is unpopular and the fossil fuel rich state mark the card at fossil fuel switch state this answers the link to the return immigration no warrants and uniqueness prices in all of their thumpers which proves our argument proves that it's only linked thumpers which proves that it's close and Michigan clean energy flows to the south where 24 Michigan's not warning environment by town creating battery EVs clean energy projects voters slash on the programs they give away to Michigan winning a message in crystal spending to play the west of the equal victory Michigan Americans have to do work to business policies aren't benefiting the youth voters turn youth voters care about low prices more than climate change pause 24 youth voters are like an average American consumer performance with the economy and economics and top priority for you studies by the trust fighting the least young people are overwhelmingly means lower prices on fuel gas and services not creating more just policies to fall down handful of progressive policies climate change are meaningful to those do not tend to be on the issues of usually on voters are prioritizing those same youth who are outside the smaller 24 Bidens this is a drawback we gave you guys energy from youngers women color could show and enthusiasm to critical voting block counter orders if you governance things that says that Gen Z is that voters are here's how the higher ceiling and there isn't a war than all of their our unique evidence prices and young voters the impact defense is wrong and their defense doesn't assume Trump and irrationality is no violence serious friend countries like North Korea with a nuclear bomb there's nothing to say that was dropping as president that's a current evidence Trump by the impact work I did above and independently testing ensuring the impact of leading 24,000 and advisory review and reviewing nuclear testing in reality the world would be dangerous for peace spark breaking wall and North Korea for the United States the US resumes testing to change reaction and testing right global touches blow power and not go home polish back price goes the US to lose advantage superior knowledge line with the Trump's very high expanding and autism says nuclear violence and closing. Check out more rapidly.
803, I think. Yeah, 807. It was 807? Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you hit yourself. I got worried about this.
What do you want to work on? Yeah.
Okay, you're good.
Did they stop them? Yeah.
It's set. You can stand. I can get no, I got it actually. Oh my god. I'm good. I'm good. I'm great at this. Just okay. I'm fine. Okay. That one. Yep. Cool. Are you all good?
What's the order?
Bench 1, bench 2, states, elections.
One sec. That's warming then China, right?
Yeah, warming China, states, elections. Cool. Michaela, you good? Yes, effective warming and loss extinction due to confluence of tip points make the Earth uninhabitable. It's linear. Each threshold emissions reduction would dramatically prevent extinction. That's line is turns more drop. That's conflict multiplier. Resource scarcity. Environmental decision making insurance countries are more important than it can be. The evidence is all about empirics is wrong. It doesn't assume. The correction current populations are the most vulnerable. 3. Empirics are not about anthropogenic warming, but natural warming, which is distinct. Anthropogenic warming is massive. And causes extinction. This global emissions so can CBA solve the trade stick. That means that countries are more willing to adopt because they want to keep the money in their own treasuries. Price and CBA solves together. Another evidence assumes a combination of both, which only we have evidence for. Is the bulk and the other card from the 1A
seems that the company makes the company WTO compliant and durable, which means the country's adopted. We saw both of the countries, which was one AC evidence last second for the carbon price fails. One, it's about appearance, and they do not scale to the U.S. because they're different countries. So the negligible level of impacts on the emissions, and the fact that those countries would implement the carbon tax while the U.S. still had emissions. The price by steps drop, no impact to it means they cannot win something to a yes model that was above the BCA stuff. The administrative error, it's simple care. 10 and tax fundamentally simple using administrative already assess in U.S. experience with excess tax on the gas are going to apply with relative ease. China has not won the war. Evidence about dominating tech, which was an A, assume that the plan which allows the U.S. to catch up. B, the U.S. is a facade. They say that they have won. They haven't actually done anything. They haven't done anything, and they are investing renewable at the same rate that they're investing in coal, which is the coal, which is the framing claim that makes that they cannot win this. B, winning the tech race does not mean they won. Overall dominance over from the liberal North Shore, which is still unique. This for the yes, they will. Yes, they are violent. They are revisionist. One, the environment. They favor environmental. Something while judging pours over fishing science and environmental groups, are also supporting the circus and college. Two, foreign policy implicit goals. Up in the LIO, border disputes, weapons and tolls. I should make a BRI proof. Advertisement that's PRC order causes extinction of my global security inheritance. Response to terror, pandemics and WMDs that. The way decoupling is good because China alone is bad, one they're fake. They are increasing coal and then renewables the same word, which means they are not solving climate change. B, US action alone is good and sufficient, which is the first advantage. 6. It can't solve advantage 1. There's a federal land deficit. Most pollution emissions in the U.S. exist on federal land, which states have no purview over means at best account of itself very little carbon emission that's resolved. The impact is massive. 0 chance of the U.S. meeting the 1.5 degree commitment without federal land stopping. 23. Will limit warming to 1.5 on the domestic climate over 7 to 130 on the U.S. contribute more than any other country. I'm the 1/4 of it covered by the federal lands of carbon notice. The lowest any remedy covered for 1.5 limit of dipped to 1.5 more done. However, Biden approved the permits on federal lands without placing Trump. In this first 2 years, federal lands are key to 1.5 degree target federal. 21 oil gas and public lands account for 25% of all emissions in the U.S. reducing fossil deployment and development of these lands is central keeping warming below 1.5 means it cannot solve advantage 1, can't solve advantage 1 or 2 at all. They don't establish a border carbon adjustment or any other regulation that can cap global emission results in leakage because companies just leave the U.S. and pollute somewhere else. Strike down, it's actually illegal for state implement tax and transfer internationally or on the border. It violates the Dormant Commerce Clause, which would be the short down accord that Sheldon also need the U.S. as signal, which is the internal link to advantage 2, continued federal lack of tax is not send the credible signal. There are certain signals needed for that to overwhelm Chinese leadership. Also can't solve international emissions at all. What they have is a chance of doing so because of the conceded trade sector evidence means that all the natural deficits on case are AFF cards, not dead cards. So evidence is horrendous. 1, strike it. It isn't PFD. It's all about the domestic commerce clause. They agree violates the foreign commerce clause. Commerce clause. 17 judges will say what rates actually regarding the trade of those will be beyond this article, although the solution within the federal system might be exiting against other state border tax being struck down domestically, burning a foul of the former in commerce clause B. But even if they were elections, right? Yeah. Yep. Elections. This does not concern case 1. Warming does not assume the AFF Trump undermines it. The demand would be gone for oil and fossil fuels would be gone when the company would risk the price. 2. China defense proceeds that Trump would start random wars. 3. Solvent substantial increasing means he can never decrease or reverse it. A substantial inherently means a large tax. Trump wins now. Solvent models give him the 64% chance of winning. He's ahead of swing states and high cost of living. Yes, my shares his chances that Kango Sorum toss up favors Trump. That is why to the quarter following Trump that they have hairs on track on the she leading on the fifth size of the she is up that they current he deserves to regarded Trump as a favor of the polling years since only 16 20 Trump's over party over year to most of they were voting call. Various problems. The debate had no impact. Chamberlain. 9/11 Harris defeated Trump in the debate, or then getting bounced according to a new poll. It didn't change voters' mind board. 9/11 of the debate looks like a Trump won an electoral vote and lost popular votes. Majority say she's risking the same, hardly not enviable. And then she got the debate of they just be able to move the needle countries and buy what she's selling. Polls are a cold trap shooter. 9/3 of them the best candidate determining whether the forecast is better in the take years or whether the candidate actually wins or take more 4,000 years of elections. But best modeling favors Trump before. 9 polls tilted in Trump direction, giving an incisively algorithm 50% chance of the country latest number. Polling on the decades returns at a 2 on the workout who hit 270 votes. Harris is 100 at the end. Most modeling is it has a Trump and a landslide silver. 400,000, 40,000 simulations of our model. Betting markers have 0 predicted power, prefers silver brown. 94 Americans, the mistaken man, taking the face value. Trying to use moment correcting obvious follow that Trump is a substantial favorite of Americans having losing big errors and possible adjusting this time silver. Better simple to that. Have to treat a favorable price as validation. Driver price is extreme, but silver does the opposite. 2016 forecast accuracy. They look to no eyes, no side on the actual profit. Ability Trump will win 70%. Either the link is either inevitable because past endorsements stop the link. Voters think she's the bold green Bolshevik who supports a fracking ban and the G&D, and that's thesis. Voters still tie Harris to passing endorsements even if she wasn't the candidate Dan McCarthy. Not to Harris, fake moderation. Voters are buying on the losing the middle. Voter percent liberal, too liberal. Harris wanted to ban fracking. She wants to switch with the GOP. The rating Trump is high tax or thumpers. Thumpers mean that it's inevitable Harris can distance herself from Biden. Inflation, the border are huge for voters who don't know how to define it with a short and a lackluster campaign. That's McLaughlin. Not distance from Biden means she's already lost Fleischer. Not to be here, we how Harris distance from Biden out of this full pitfalls and embracing trial lost Trump. Attack her admin on that admin's record on that economy and immigration. Whether she's a Biden means deeply impossible or no link because Harris distances from the plan. She's ditching progressive attitudes for the most salient critiques of the economy and taxes. That means she won't run a carbon tax as Collins and she distances from the plan because she's doing with that North full bar. 96 Harris. Don't let the French pack events. These political kryptonite on this poll and EP on the distributed in the middle, and gymnastics. He's going to apologize for the way she sounds like a Republican, or they're tuned out, drop. Voters are tuned out, drop. His key to the election is swing voters who are tuned out and don't pay attention to tax policy. They're only paying attention. And the attention to rhetoric that's to AC Israel means substantive Lincoln means they cannot win it. No impact to Trump will cause distinction being a loose cannon means that adversaries will keep cooler heads to avoid war. But he's a peacemaker. He supported the Abraham record, strengthened the lines it searches for common ground with adversaries like Corona. Yes, assumes that they wouldn't start any random wars. No rogue nuclear strike fever. 17 steps to bring the ticket of bypass. The order alert of national security efforts to bypass federal laws and borders. Some Americans and our orders not even the Lord said the middle that we gave confidence questions asked before. I'm the shark happened. I'm just not even sharper than LUI. I'm because I'm the U.S. Brace. I'm the interest border defense. I'm the worker finance team. The difficult person. I'm the active preventive scenarios. I have military hardly time. At the bit, I'm the use initiate use of plan rather always than never. I'm the we lose sensibility control. Trump doesn't start random wars. Great. 24 Trump size before. Recommended you clearly warnings beyond little similar reality. Trump did not choose to undertake foreign interventions. Margin interventions.
Oh, she's using this update for 2 weeks at this point.
What was the warrant for doesn't turn case?
Which one there?
Like all of them.
For warming, doesn't assume the AFF. Even if Trump undermines undermines like renewables, the demand would be gone for fossil fuels, which means no company would risk the price.
Mm-hmm.
2, China impact defense proceeds. This Trump wouldn't start random wars.
Okay.
3, solvency substantial and increasing means you cannot decrease or reverse it.
Okay.
Substantially inherently means a large tax.
just gonna take that one, right? Yeah. I'm doing
No.
it.
Come on.
Well, not that, but yeah, but what is
Huh?
what is something else?
I hear her.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? Sending me to top level frame 30 minutes to have 6.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Do you want to I'm gonna send what matters from this to you once we get to.
Okay, sorry. Okay. The order's gonna be the DA, the counterplan, the climate advantage, and then the China advantage.
DA, counterplan, band 1, bench 2.
You said 1, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I'm sending some
Let's send a doc.
It's just
Oh,
rehighlightings, so like if you want them.
I'm gonna shut this door.
You're good.
There was a spectator for the 1 hour. It was pretty funny.
Oh, seriously? I didn't even notice that.
I'm just opening this doc and then opening this doc. Okay. Where's my timer?
I'm sure the random Northwestern employee was very confused.
Okay. Everybody good?
Opening it. 1 second.
Yeah, take your time.
Okay, I'm good.
You two are good? Okay. Liz? Mikhail? Yep. Okay.
The DA massively outweighs Donald Trump calls it a nuclear winter. It's impossible to check or stop, and there are 2 terminal impacts to this. One is nuclear confrontation. Trump causes Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea to go to war because of the perception that the U.S. is a massive threat that which ensures the world turns into a global nuclear temperature box. Second is global proliferation. Donald Trump independently starts nuclear testing, which causes South Korea, Germany, and Japan to proliferate because they don't believe in U.S. leadership anymore, which is the Alim and Cercio and evidence. It outweighs the case. One outweighs China on scope, and their time frame is nebulous because you never know when Chinese Chinese leadership has overtaken the U.S., but you know that by January, Donald Trump will have overtaken the world order. Second, it is warming. It's a long term. Their impact is long term, but you know that by January, Donald Trump will restart the global world order. It also turns the case. It turns warming. We are the only ones with evidence that says that Donald Trump will cost the United States $4 billion in emissions and cause a global domestic cost of $900 billion in fossil fuel funds, which is the evidence of it. They have no evidence that says that demand overwhelms Donald Trump's ability to influence the fossil fuel industry. Second, it turns the China impact Donald Trump causes provocations that shred the liberal international order, which causes long-term damage to U.S. perception and position, which is the wall evidence impact defense doesn't assume U.S. perception, which means Donald Trump will eradicate the world order, which takes out their impact faster than they're able to solve. Now the uniqueness debate. There are 4 reasons why Harris is ahead. First is the debate. She's winning. Our own evidence is the most recent and said she's right in her lead over Trump, leading by 5 points after the debate, which while Trump lost support and because it decreased from 46% to 45%, which proves that the debate actually did cause her momentum. Second is polls, which is the McCarthy evidence. Leading pollsters all agree that Trump is losing now. Luntz predicted that Trump is going to lose after his contentious debate with Harris, which proves that his negative performance causes pessimistic views with voters, which is the McCarthy evidence. And third is betting markets, which is the Sargent evidence that says that Harris already is overtaking the odds now, and she's winning in swing states, which is the Osgood evidence, which says that she's narrowly ahead in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia. Going for betting markets, they're the best indicators, and they've been right since 1866. They do not have any evidence that counters that. So even if they're right that polls suck, we are the only ones in the debate who have a tangible indicator. Their only evidence is a warrant is Silver said so, but that's incoherent, and they do not have a warrant. Alan Lichtman said Harris wins, so you can go back and forth naming political gurus all day, but that doesn't change the fact that the best predictor floats the NEG. Their evidence concedes that methodology sucked, and they were all wrong in 16. That's 2009-6. Why? Is it blue? None of them completely rigorous. All of them shouted the fact that I was wrong. Commissioned by the Post. It's one sentence with zero methodology. Prefer our evidence that says the confluence of polls agree with us. That's Chamberlain 9/11, according to a new poll commissioned by the Post. Barron just says she's a risky choice, which sets up the unique debate that the plan increased risk associated with her pre-debate, which is the poor 990 evidence that says the day before he goes to head with a Democratic rival on stage. Also, there is Silver evidence is also pre-debate and doesn't assume the momentum. Brown doesn't assume the debate that shifted the betting markets, which proves that we are terminally ahead on the uniqueness debate. The link is not inevitable. There are two links. First is the taxes link. They're polarizing. Voters think that they put the responsibility on the middle class, which doesn't help people that are affected by climate change, which is a reason that Biden and Harris refuse to wear to tax because that's political salient, which is the Osaka evidence. Second is benefits. They're not salient, especially in swing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan, where Harris needs to prove to voters that she will be good for the economy, which is the Tomberini evidence, which proves we have offense for what they can't answer. They say pass endorsement. None of the cards said she'll lose the election because of this. We read evidence that says a carbon tax policy would polarize swing states like Pennsylvania and Michigan that matter for the election. McCarthy just says she's flip-flopping it. Doesn't say she'll lose the election because of it. Betting markets has proved. Dozier says the economy is the biggest issue, but dropped that the app is perceived as an economic loser and the economy is high now. Duquesnoy says that Republicans win and Harris is flip-flopping more, which is the app. It doesn't say Harris is losing now. Gasparino is irrelevant and just says a dystopian vision, but that's offense for us, and Trump will use the app to paint Harris. Distancing is wrong. It doesn't assume the way Trump will stick her with it. Their evidence says Harris is winning because she's sounding like a Republican, but that's the app. Tuned out doesn't assume the perceptual impact that the app has on voters, which proves that none of the thumpers apply because the plan gets tied to her because it's so politically unpopular. Now the counterplan. I'm going for the counterplan solves the perception of the China impact because if the U.S. because it solves the U.S. the perception of the U.S. being behind. They only said that it didn't solve the warming advantage, which we'll concede, but it does solve the perception of the U.S. being behind China in the status quo. Now the climate change advantage. The 2NC just outcarded them on the evidence. First was that global emissions thump. They cannot solve China or India in the status quo, which is the Stevens and the Nutricelli evidence that says that they do not want to do anything. Then carbon taxes warming might be global, but carbon taxes are not, which means countries have no incentive to follow on, and the U.S. is already a small fraction of global emissions. And even if there are emissions, they move offshore rather than dissipate, even with the border adjustment, which is the TAR evidence, which was read in cross-section, which is just absolutely devastating. Now, climate is not existential. It's unlikely. Their studies assume a substantial increase in CO2 emissions, which won't happen. Fossil fuels are already past their peak. It also can't cause war because small-scale conflicts are inevitable, but their impacts are overstated. Goplani is the best study in this debate, and is a study from the 1700s to now, and says that we've increased our ability to resist CO2. Now the China advantage. China has already won the race. If they're right about perception, then that means China should have already won, because they're dominant in things like minerals and supply chains, which they have decades of advantages over the U.S., which proves that China has already won the tech race. And it's not just about perception. China won't shift the world order. They don't have an interest in exporting systems, which is the lead and swing evidence that says they don't have the capability or will to challenge the U.S. All of their evidence about environmental shift is thumped by what I said above, which proves that the GAO weighs.
Okay. 555. I'll just send you the fact. Do you agree? Oh, okay. Okay, try to. Yep. Okay. Do you want all the meeting stuff still, or?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this first.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add some
order is warming. China, the state's kind of plan is out. We good?
Yeah.
Great.
Good? No. It was weirdly close to the wall.
Okay, sorry. When presented with the option of solving climate change, we're voting for use of Trump. You should choose solving climate change every time. We have substantial impact defense to the DSAT, which was conceded coming out of the 2 NR that makes there very little impact to the DSAT, more than a poof of smoke. Warming is a categorically different impact than a Trump election. You should apply the precautionary principle to shape all impacts. We do not know when warming will accelerate enough to cook the planet alive, but we do know that we are able to survive 4 years of Trump, and we can do it again. Tipping points shape defense. The Earth is heading for a greenhouse state now. Methane bombs, melting ice, and tree tieback release sequestered emissions and lower the planetary albedo. You should not take the chance of finding out what it takes to cook the planet alive. The climate defense. Our studies do not assume substantial increases in emissions. It actually assumes a slight decrease in emissions, but does assume things like runaway climate change, melting of Arctic sea ice, which releases emissions, and it causes runaway climate change, which creates a conflict multiplier, e.g. migration crisis and a lot of food and water scarcity, which causes conflicts that escalate. Their defense is extrapolating the past year. The defense does not assume anthropogenic warming in the status quo. It's a descriptive of warming since the 1700s, and different technologies being able to solve things like death and disease, which is irrelevant in the context of climate change and the status quo. In the status quo, you should prefer our evidence that cites the consensus of 11,000 scientists saying that it's anthropogenic and existential threat. Their only other argument here was some case defense. There was some arguments about us not solving international emissions. We have a predictive and descriptive evidence that says that they were able to innovate technology and would export that technology abroad, which is sufficient to solve our impacts. But global emissions do not thump the 1AC. You should extend the 1AC Clark and Bach and Pomerleau evidence that applies the affirmative applies a carbon border adjustment, which applies a trade stick, which encourages countries like China and India to follow on to the plan. The Clark evidence says, quote, China and Russia might squawk about it, but are talking about setting up their own in-house carbon pricing in response. There was a significant incentive to keep money in their own treasuries, so they would follow onto the app, adopt a carbon border adjustment, and solve climate change. They do not have any evidence that distinguishes whether or not it would be sufficient to solve climate change. We have the best predictive evidence that's in the context of a carbon price, the China advantage. Concede China does not have the capability or will to challenge the U.S.'s impact defense. It's the DSAT not going for it. The state's counterplan, they've conceded that it does not solve advantage 1, extend the federal state's emphasis that most pollution occurs on federal lands, and they can just up and move to the federal lands, which is insufficient to solve climate change. The DSAT. Framing issue for the DSAT is if they win 100% of it, it still starts at 45% for their own unique discards. I'll start on the impact. The 2 NRs conceded the entirety of the impact defense of the 2EC and 1AR. It is game over. It means the risk of the DSAT is 0 when the affirmative outweighs if we win any risk of an impact or warming. Trump does not cause extinction. A. Being a loose candidate, it means adversaries avoid rather than initiate conflict because they think the cooler heads can prevent their evisceration. B. He's a peacemaker. He supported the Abraham Accords, strengthened alliances, and search for a common ground with adversaries rather than antagonizing them. That's the Kronig evidence. The 1 NR and 2 NR impact explanation is posturing, point of actual and particular empirics. Trump previously created peace rather than conflict in nearly every instance. No rogue first strike. It is physically impossible for Trump to do it willy-nilly. He'd have to convince his national security team, alarm subordinates, and the military will just strike down any violent order. They are not naive nor easily persuadable. That's the Fever evidence. No proliferation impacts. Drop the Kronig evidence, which says that he'd strengthen alliances. He would strengthen alliances, which is sufficient to solve their impacts. No turns case argument. Their evidence is descriptive of the status quo. It does not assume the U.S. which implementing a carbon tax and carbon border adjustment, which would cause a shift towards renewable energies, make fossil fuels uneconomic, and cause a global transition which solves climate change. They cannot win any rollback arguments because the plan says increasing, which means that after Biden it would just increase and Trump cannot decrease or reverse it. The link. The risk of the link should be 0. 1. The 1 NR drop that voters are tuned out. That is key to the key to the election are not voters who are paying attention to every policy or political ads, because all of those voters have already made up their mind. It is about voters who are tuned out, unreachable, and do not pay attention to things like tax policy. policy. They only pay attention to rhetoric, which the affirmative would not affect. That is the Israel evidence. The 2NR had 2 sentences to answer this argument. It was new in the 2NR, not an argument to the 1NR, so you should strike it off the flow, and their only answer was that it does not assume the perceptual impact of the link, which is not an answer to this argument. Second, she is either tied to Biden in her past degree initiatives, and that would make the link inevitable, or she's able to distance herself from Biden in the past initiatives, and she would not be attached to the plan. She would not be attached to the plan. All extend past initiatives. Some voters believe the attack as in Trumpian rhetoric that Harris is a communist who is trying to take everyone's oil by banning fracking and endorsing the Green New Deal. It does not matter if she wasn't a presidential candidate then, because voters associate the policy that she has endorsed to pass to her. The 44% of the middle label as her being too liberal because of her climate policy that causes Harris. Biden also causes her to lose if she can't distance herself. There's a litany of factors that make it impossible to win. Massive inflation and migration crisis are the key issues to the election. Dropped by the 2NR, or there's no link because Harris would just distance herself from the plan because she said in the debate she is not Biden and the plan would be Biden. She's been dishing policies that are controversial and dishing progressive attitudes. The uniqueness debate. Betting markets are not predictive. You should prefer the silver model, which is descriptive of swing states, places with clear probability and has empirical success. You should prefer experts with policy analysis, battlegrounds, and amazing algorithms over some random frat bros that are betting on DraftKings. Trump wins now. Silver's model gives him a 64% chance of winning. He's ahead in swing states, and the cost of living is so high that he's estimating Harris's chances of winning. That's the Canagarium evidence. Even if it's a closer with top of, that always favors Trump. In order for Harris to win polls, we have to be decisively in her favor. Electoral college and empirics show that Trump always outperforms her in the election and is far closer than ever established. That's the two-thought evidence. Him being wrong in 2016 does not mean that his analysis is always wrong. It was conceded. Polling error and empirics put infinite doubt on their unique claims. The debate did nothing for her. Polls after the debate did not get any bounce, and voters concluded that she was the same as they thought, but not that she was a better candidate. That's the Chamberlain and Barone evidence. You should reject their polls. One, through a crapshoot. Never accurately model Trump, even after the best case. It was never correct when Trump was in the election because Trump voters don't pick up the phone. That's the Gerber evidence. Second, best models that account for polls have Trump in a decisive lead. Algorithms show a 55% chance of winning, crushing all of the latest polls. Means that even if a single poll has Harris' head, overall algorithms easily predict a Trump victory. That's the Lepore evidence. And models are better than betting markets. They take into account all factors in an algorithm rigorously designed to be best. Good debate.
Good debate.
Card doctrines.
Yes.
Negus.